When it comes to death metal, what's more important, the vocals or the actual instruments? Hey everyone, Mike here with Extreme Metal Magazine. Welcome back to another video. Now, I love death metal, and there's no doubt about it that it can be a very confusing genre to people. And even people that listen to this type of music know that at certain times it's done right, and at certain times it's completely not done right. But what is the most important part of the genre? Is it the vocals that are the most important? To the average person, when you say the word death metal, they're probably familiar with it, and they're going to think it's kind of like they're going to think it's kind of a growling, almost a Cookie Monster type of vocal, so they are familiar with that. That's probably the most, when you say the word death metal, that's probably the most recognizable part of the genre. But to those that listen to it, to those that listen to extreme metal, what is the most important part of the genre? Is it the vocals or is it the actual instruments? Now, if you're probably answering the question straight up, you're probably going to say both. All the great records of the past have had amazing vocals with great guitar work, great bass work, and great drum tracks. So if you're really just answering that question down the middle, you're probably going to say everything needs to be firing on all cylinders. It's kind of like a movie. Name me a good movie that doesn't have a good soundtrack. I'm going to say that again. Name me a good movie that doesn't have a good soundtrack. Music, I love orchestral music like John Williams. I'm a big fan of Jurassic Park, Jaws, E.T., all of it. I love movie soundtracks. And, the movie soundtracks make the movies what they are. They are the heartbeat of the movies. And again, find me a good movie that has a terrible soundtrack. I don't think it exists. Now, can you have a good death metal record with not great vocals? I think the answer is you can. It's probably not recommended. Obviously, if someone said, would you rather have good, powerful death metal vocals or weak, powerful death metal vocals? Probably you're going to say, I'd rather have powerful death metal vocals. But I do think that you can produce a good record without having great vocals. Some albums that come to mind are, Carcass, Reek of Putrefaction, Carcass, Symphonies of Sickness. The vocals were very light, very low, and they weren't that distinguishable. Think about Leprosy by Death. Chuck's vocals are front and center, just punching you in the gut. But again, go back to Carcass, Symphonies of Sickness from 1989, an Earache release. The vocals are almost like a low rumbling. You don't hear it. So you're really getting into the song by the guitar work and the drums and the bass. And, when I really think about why I listen to death metal, I listen to death metal for the overall beat. And the overall beat is the guitars, the bass, the drums. That's the overall sound. Now, obviously, the vocals are vastly important. But again, it is death metal, so most of the vocals we really can't understand. I know the lyrics to quite a few death metal songs, quite a few death metal records. But there's definitely death metal records where I do not know the lyrics to. I'll be honest. I love Symphonies of Sickness by Carcass. I do not know the lyrics to the majority of the songs. I have to go and read them. Almost impossible to discern them. But if you listen to Leprosy by Death as a good example, you can understand a lot of the lyrics. Chuck's vocal delivery was very clean, whereas some other people, it's not so clean. But again, my question for you all is, do you think that vocals are more important, or do you think that the instruments are more important in death metal? I think that the instruments probably are more important. When I really think about why I listen, there's so many records that I listen to where I think, the death metal vocals could be more powerful. And sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. And when everything's firing on all cylinders, when the vocals are just, because you don't want the vocals to take over. You don't want the vocals to be more powerful than the actual mix, than the actual riffs. You want it to all be blending perfectly. But sometimes it seems like the actual riffs, the bass, the drums are louder than the vocals. Think about Intestine Balism. We've talked about that album. Intestine Balism, their album 1997, Anatomy of the Beast. That is a great example. I'm going to say it again. 1997, Intestine Balism, Anatomy of the Beast. That album is phenomenal. And that's an album where I'm literally listening to the sound, and the vocals are not that great. It's kind of like a low rumbling, and it works. So when I really sit back and think about what do I listen for in a death metal record, I listen for that beat. I listen for the groove, the sound, the riffs. To me, it's all about the riffs. I love the vocals too. Don't get me wrong. The screaming, the shrieking, the low guttural roars. I love it all. If I didn't, I wouldn't listen to death metal. But I think when I really think about what's more important, I think the overall riffs are more important. They provide the melody. I think the drums and the bass. So love to hear your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. In regards to death metal, producing a good death metal album, what do you think is more important? You think the vocals are more important, or do you think the instruments are more important? Love to hear from you down in the comment section down below. And as always, stay metal.